It's okay. It's okay. So what I would like to do now is I want each group to, you have your note taker, and I'm going to assume that your note taker is going to be the one that's going to get up and explain this to the group. If your note taker refuses that job, they can assign it to someone else in your group. So So I'm curious about why the data analysis people are so wild and crazy. It's not your usual reputation.
Yeah, but I highly doubt anyone else would find these jokes funny.
Okay, so I'm going to invite you to have someone come up and speak to them. How funny. Hey guys, we now have the web group that is up here. We might need to move this so you guys can see.
So let's start live.
Yeah. So the first strength we thought of was numbers and graphs. We really like to take a bunch of data and put it into a way, like put it into something like a graph that can easily communicate to other people. And one of the things we thought about is those things are very helpful when you're applying for grants. And you can measure success, or when you're filling out your charge conference reports. But also practical steps are really important. We can put together like step-by-step how-to guides for people in the community to help you. We're really good at organization and structure and relating numbers, that it's not just like a sea of random unrelated things, like figuring out how numbers connect to each other and why they're related. We also like to find order in the chaos. Things that we need. We need people to pull us out when we get a little bit too mired in the data and the numbers. We go down rabbit holes a lot. We also need people to remind us of what the big picture is. We need perspective. It's something that's hard for us to see sometimes. We also need people to help us set deadlines. We need people who can inspire. I think we've seen in a lot of things that numbers by themselves do not inspire people. Data by itself does not inspire people. We need someone who can take numbers and attach feelings to it, because that's what inspires people. And we also need people to support us when things are really uncertain.
Great, thank you. Okay, how about this corner? Are you north? North. Sure, you think it's so big. I think there'll be more than one. We are all
So we're the North group, and I'm just going to go ahead and take control right now. Over there. Our strengths are that we don't wait for y'all to catch up. We just move along and get things done. Seeing where we need to go and what steps need to get there, and like the motivation and the passion and the enthusiasm to take action and to do that, to make it happen, to stop being around the bush, and then also critical thinking that motivates action. So we see a problem, we see something that needs to be changed, and we are taking initiative to jump in and do it. So what we need is someone to one thing that I think can happen a lot is that we tend to run a little bit too fast and leave other people behind, and those people are crucial to the process of actually being successful. So we need people to help us build relationships with other people that are working on our projects, to be patient, and help engage. Yeah, we wrote a South person first. That's actually see you all over here. the sole leader, and so then if something happens or we're gone or we're moved or whatever, the project fails and falls apart when we leave. And so to make sure that that doesn't happen, we really need somebody to help us foster community engagement and just be intentional about that ourselves, and write down what happens, record what happens, taking the time to like pay attention to the details, taking time to process what's happening, how it's affecting the members of our community, of our teams, and unintended consequences of what it might have. So being able to be a little bit reflexive.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's go to this corner.
All right.
That is Turner. These are the ideas.
Yes. You wouldn't understand anyway, so we're not going to show you. No. No. What we discussed is that we are very overwhelming people, and we get overwhelmed with our ideas, and also can overwhelm others with the ideas we have. We are the people who are always looking towards the Jerusalem or the Mecca, this new, the new place, the new, the best, the greatest, this thing. We are inspiring.
We need you.
We need you.
We are inspiring. We look for that fertile ground, that leaven, that thing that keeps us going, but we are also terrified.
Yeah.
We are worried that we can get people hurt, that we can get people killed. I mean, both literally and figuratively. But that our ideas are also just these big webs of things that are just jumping and jumping. Some of us are more linear, but others are more just like, let's look at all the things. And try. So we need people to help us kind of pick one or two of those and to support us in trying to figure out what that actually looks like in the real world. So we need to help balance out, and we also the kind of the reflective end of the doers. The why are we doing these sort of things? What are we doing these sort of things for? What has this action gotten us? What can our action and then you decide what can our reflection lead to, and those sort of things. But we also need these relationships and these people to help us get our ideas across and to help support us and spread the word of ideas. But we also need people who are good with data, because
You need us.
we say lots of things, but are these things actually feasible in the real world? And also, we can take your data and just make up a whole bunch of stuff about it. We're the interpreters of the data that you found. This looks beautiful. Yeah, the spin doctors. Is that it? Is that good for everybody?
Okay, so I'm going to start off personally saying I'm directionally challenged and felt like I could be north, south, east. So the only one thing I couldn't be was west, so I need you personally. We are south, and we did not follow directions because we were so excited about our feelings that they just came rushing out. And so we don't have them in segmented groups, so we'll just read them. But I just want y'all to know that we recognize, and I'm going to lay some real good Southern on you, all y'all need us. So, all right. All right, so if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that sort of represents how people sometimes feel disengaged from the process, because we're feeling things and people want to go fast, right? It's important to include all voices, and all voices are value-driven. It's important to have fun. Notice that I've used, emojis throughout the list. Emotionals feel deeply, and they feel first. We are balanced by grounded people, so we need grounded people. We need to be self-aware of our emotions, so our emotions don't overtake what's trying to be achieved by the entire group. And that, once again, we had this a couple of times, feelings have value too, so we need to be recognized for our feelings. Feelings can be genderized and therefore dismissed. Feelings can take us off track. Feelings can and are the basis of all relationships, and so that's why one of the reasons we're really important to the process. When you have someone domineering, they can shut feeling people down, so we need to be aware of that. And the Souths are also the first to lift others when they are feeling
All right. Wonderful wonderful job with this session. And if you can do this session, if you can do this self-reflectively, it probably means you're going to be a healthy member of a group. And so because you're aware of your strengths, but you're also aware of what other people bring. And just a word of caution with your groups. Avoid folks that I call derailers. They're usually just folks in the point of their life where they're constantly controlling the group, they're constantly criticizing the group, or they're constantly confusing the group. Avoid those 3 C's. And so, and then it's a what's that?
What are you doing?
What's that? It's always a challenge. It's always a challenge when you have those folks and there's no easy answer once they get into the center of your group. And so one of the things with your interviews is you're trying to do your best to kind of gauge those things. Who do you invite into the core of your group? And again, we all have our bad days. We all have our bad months, perhaps. But we're just talking if folks are constantly disrupting the group. That can be a challenge. So just be aware of that, and we all know that. I mean, that's just. But again, if you're out there and you can do this kind of exercise, we're aware of the gifts of the others and the gifts that others bring, and we're aware of our own tendencies. We can build a healthy, strong group to bring our projects forward. So, all right, let's bring our chairs back in the center here for our final piece of the night. I know, it's pretty amazing that we had almost equal numbers in this. What's that?
The data people
The data people noticed that.
Right.
Yes, we did. We counted each group.
Sorry.
The data people noticed.
I left mine here, so I got it. Yes, well, the 2 chemistry groups were memory by data. Oh, that would make sense. I'm a baker.
Yeah, and just mention that if you didn't hear, the data people noticed that we had almost equal numbers in our quadrants. Well-balanced group, well-balanced group. That's one of the reasons I think Earthkeepers is going to be a strong organization. So, okay, this next exercise is just essentially the one you're going to do on your own. And it's, turn to page 10 if you have your book. And it's really in your project. And you're probably not going to be able to do all this tonight in the truest sense of the term, because again, this is when you're going out there. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a congestion here. A bit of in the outreach into your community. But the kind of questions you're going to be asking are: who's going to be in the project planners? Who's going to be the folks actually kind of the core planning group for this project? And again, I suggest starting with just a small group, 2 or 3. But eventually you'll want to expand that group out. Who are your project partners? Well, that could be, for instance, the director of the local farmers market, a staff member at Goodwill. We don't have our pictures up anymore. A scientist at the local college. These are folks that aren't going to be part of your core planning process, but they might be a partner, and they might be a local farmer. They might be any numbers of things, a local carpenter, somebody that's a partner for your project. And so just, you're going to have your core planners, you're going to have your partners, and then you're going to have folks that are essentially supporters. It might be a local business that donates something to your project. It might be your pastor who essentially supports the project along, but doesn't want to be part of the core planning group, or it doesn't make sense to be part of the core planning group. And so it's essentially just kind of identifying who those folks would be. And then, this is not so much part of the exercise, but you will need to determine what your structure is. It doesn't have to be anything complex, but you just need to kind of figure out, are you going to have a planning committee? Are you going to meet monthly? Is it going to be very informal? What is your structure going to be? And it's just a matter of determining what's best for your group. What's the process going to be going along? And what is your protocol? How are you going to make decisions? Again, with a very small group, you can just kind of come to usually, hopefully, agreement. With a larger group, there are consensus methods you can use. I often just recommend, though, that you try to do your best to come to consensus. And if you don't, at some point, you vote. And if you might have a number like we have to get 2/3 or 3/4 or something to move forward. But certain processes, unless you're really good at consensus, again, one person can just kind of block everything, and that can become kind of problematic. The group just gets bogged down, and one person finds a problem with everything. And what's that?
An invite.
Yeah, or just have a process where you don't have that. And so again, most of your projects are probably going to be projects where people can come to agreement and just kind of move along. But do have a protocol in place if you ever if you're having challenges, and then just try to work together as, in a friendly fashion to work together for your decisions. And our exercise for tonight is you're going to spend just a little bit of time journaling, and as long as it takes you, or as short a time as it takes you, we'll gather back together we're going to have worship a little early. It's been a long day at 7:45. And so just journal a little bit, but use these guiding questions. Determine a little bit who might be some of your project partners. Who are you going to go out and talk to in the community? Who might be some of your project partners? Who might be some of your project supporters? Just do a little identifying in your own mind of who those folks might be. And some guiding questions here on page 11, just to kind of help you think some of this through. Who represents the heart of your community? Who represents the mainstream of your community? Who represents the margins of your community? Are you going to invite some of those folks in your project? I hope you will. Who represents the diversity of your community? Is your project going to represent the diversity of your community? Who has the power in your community? You may want to bring the powerful people in. You might not. That's a decision to make. But be aware of that. Who has the passion in your community around your project? That's an extremely important one. Who has the passion? And who has the knowledge in your community? So I think those are some guiding questions. And then types of folks in your community. Again, you don't need to bring all these into your core, but you want to be aware of them. Who are the guides in your community? Who can kind of guide you through your community? Who are the brokers in your community? Who are the gatekeepers in your community? Who are those folks that if they say yes to something, it can kind of move forward. If they say no, you're going to run into some roadblocks. Again, you don't necessarily have to have those folks as your core group, but there are folks to be aware of. Who are the mobilizers in your community? If you can get mobilizers into your group, that's a great thing. Who are the teachers in your community? Who are the workers in your community? Who's going to do the work? Who are the mediators in your community when there's conflict? Who can help mediate things? And then finally, who are the whys in your community? And again, from the next section, who are the key associations and academies in your community that you can invite folks from? Are there outside experts that you want to draw upon? And who do you intend to benefit from this project? If somebody's going to be benefiting from this project, you definitely want them involved in, the envisioning and planning of it. Because again, we're not trying to do something necessarily for people, but trying to do with people and involve them in that process. And how do you intend to involve these persons in the planning and execution of your project? And finally, whose involvement can make or break the success of this project? And that's a kind of core question. And so again, you don't need to answer all those questions tonight. It would take a long time to do so, but those are just kind of guiding questions to help guide you through the process of thinking about who some of your project planners might be and who you want to go out and interview and talk to, who some of your project partners might be, and who some of your project supporters might be. And so just take as much time as you need during the next 25 minutes, and you can sit in here, you can sit out in the cafeteria, wherever you want, and take as long, as little as you want, and kind of just journal and work through these questions. Yes, question?
How do we get down to you said you start with your project planner, start with 2 to 3 people. At this point, as I understand where we are in this process, we've had a lot of meetings, one-on-one conversations, we've had group sort of meetings to try to, and then how do you identify out of all those people that you've been in touch with? Do you pull up 2 or 3 and say, we're the leaders here?
Again, you probably, what I'm suggesting is 2 or 3, somewhere in the early part of your process, you probably want a couple people working with you in this project. And so these are just folks that you're comfortable working with, that have a passion with this, that have a little bit of sense of organization on this, have some knowledge about this. They aren't going to be the power brokers on it, but they're the kind of people who can guide you through the initial stages of this project until you can build a bigger team. That's what I'm thinking about there.
So they're in the beginning.
They're there from fairly early on in the process, yeah. And so when you go back, start thinking of, and again, that's not a necessity. You can do it on your own. But I've always found, I work with Paul. Where's Paul? We work together all of the time, and I think we bring, each other. We complement each other's strengths and weaknesses. Paul, of course, has no weaknesses.
That's right. Keep you in line is what I did.
Yeah, it keeps me in line. And so, having a couple people that you're working with in your project can be very helpful. And then once you've done more interviewing, much more envisioning, you can start building a little bit larger leadership team around it. And those folks are going to be folks that are really, people being benefited by it, people who bring particular expertise to your project, these kind of guiding questions that you want to bring into your core planning team so you can get things done. And again, use your own sense of things, how formal you want to make that, how informal you want to make all of that, working your cultural context and all of that. There's no one way to do all of that. It just, have some kind of clear protocol in place if there's a little bit of conflict that might arise. So, any other questions? Yeah.
Mine is logistics of yours.
So on maybe they're not projects so much as actions that are fairly short-term, and I've been in situations where when I try to get people to sign up for it, they resist, but if I ask them late in the process, when it's getting close to when they could do it, they step up and they do it. And I'm wondering if you have any advice for that kind of managing that kind of system.
That's not bad. I mean, again, some folks are just going to want to work or contribute in some way. They don't want to get involved in all the planning process, and so that's fine too. Again, go with what people want to do, but if you have a kind of inspiring vision and you don't bog people down with 100 meetings, that you're fairly clear in how you move forward with things, you can usually get a group of people to kind of, but again, so some of those folks might be your partners, they might be your supporters, they might be kind of people that work on the project, or then they might work on the project for a little while and get really excited about it and want to, contribute more. So does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I just wanted to say, you mentioned doing worship a little early. The worship team needs about 10 minutes to set up and circle up before we actually leave worship.
Okay.
So should we do that at 7:35 or should we do it at 7:45 and start worship?
You say about 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Well, it's probably, let's say, let's give you at least, let's give you, we will start worship about 7:50 then, to give people time to work on this. And so about 7:40.
Okay, so if you're all doing worship tonight,
Yeah.
just come here at 7:40.
Yeah, and we'll start at 7:50. We'll do a few more minutes for that. So let's just take a little bit of time. That's about a little bit over 20 minutes, 25 minutes to just journal, and take as long or as little as you need to do that.